is Colin Clavery. I'm the product owner of Spark here at Netcall. And today, in this Wednesday drop-in session, I will introduce you to a methodology to run successful process workshops. Process workshops are really at the heart of what made Spark here originally. So we the initial founders of the product when it was named Score, we gathered forces because we thought we wanted to have a perfect tool for running process workshop, a tool that doesn't get in your way, but helps you running the workshop, helps you make people talk and defining clear processes to solve your issues. So the first question we asked ourselves when we set up is why run process workshops at all? The main benefit is to get inputs from multiple people. It's impossible for just one person to map a process, and you know that as soon as you present your process to someone, it will be hit with questions and challenges. So the best is to involve these people right from the beginning. And ultimately, there's no perfect process in the absolute sense. There's just a process that everyone agrees is the right and where you have a consensus over what it defines. So this is where workshops are essential to reach this common understanding, this shared understanding of the situation. It also helps getting the buy-in and the engagement, especially when you have some very complex topics or radical changes to some existing ways of working that are driven by legacy systems and habits, and you've been doing it this way for a very long time. So having a workshop where everyone can discuss the pros and cons, the upsides and downsides of anything is very good. And you'll find that most of the time people that have participated in the creation of a process will be the best advocate to go and defend these new ways of working to the wider organization. So this is why we believe workshops are quite essential to all transformations projects in your organization, whatever the transformation is. And this is actually what is very important in this preparation phase, which is very important from the yeah. Any questions?
I was just like, I ain't got any pictures. I haven't tried the outline yet.
If people can stay on mute, that would be ideal. So yeah, the preparation phase is quite critical to a workshop, even more when the topic is a bit sensitive, or that not everyone agrees that there is a need for a change or by the change itself. So agreeing the scope is very important. So not only which processes are mapped, where does it start and finish, but also why are we doing this change in the first place? What is it, the pain points that we'd like to alleviate? What is the problem the organization is facing that we think we can solve, and having a better understanding of our processes will help. Defining if you will map your current process, do you need a good understanding of the current situation to be able to really have all the cards in hands in order to define a solution? Or are you mapping the to be wished version of the future, as a team needs to be also crystal clear for all the participants? There's nothing as bad as this kind of misunderstanding between people who thought they were mapping the current version and people who thought they were expecting to map the next version. So make sure that this is crystal clear for everyone in the room. And also, like, just the logistics of a workshop. Where is it taking place? Is it fully online? When is it? Be careful of time zones. If it's purely online, I find that 2 hours is like the threshold that anyone can bear, even the facilitator and the participants. If it's on site, you can easily go for an entire week because the dynamics are completely different. So for an online workshop, I would say 2 hours max. I'm usually trying to avoid having a mixed audience of people online and offline, so people in the room and people on a computer. I know sometimes you cannot avoid that, but it usually creates like really two different meetings with dynamics, very weird dynamics, and inside trading jokes in the room that people remotely can't get. So I'm always trying to avoid that. Now, after almost 6 years past the initial COVID lockdown, maybe I think everyone is quite familiar with their remote working equipments, but still worth a check, especially if you're working with teams that you're not used to. If you're a facilitator and you're required to work, I don't know, you work with the procurement team and you've never worked with them, it might be better off to do a first a trial run with someone to make sure that they have everything they need to run such a workshop, and then invite the participants. So it's a fine line to walk between inviting too many people and not enough. I find that online 6 7 people max, then it gets very complicated to manage an online presence and interactions. In a room you can go a bit above because dynamics are not the same, but again, if you have too many people, this becomes like crowd management rather than process management. So choose the participants wisely. Not only the senior people, sometimes they want to be involved, they want to have their finger in every pie, but it's not the goal. Like, have people that are bring value to the actual workshop, and you'd be surprised how someone who recently joined an organization, let's say junior people from the sense of having just joined an organization, can be very, very valuable because they bring some outsider point of view and sort of naivete that's sometimes very, very welcome in a workshop over someone that has been there for 30 years in an organization, who certainly will bring some knowledge, but may also basically not see what's possible because they haven't been exposed to that in a very, very long time. So to summarize, preparation is key to have a successful workshop. The more challenge there is, the better preparation you will need. So now, when we are in the actual workshop, so you've chosen your list of participants very carefully and you've done a great preparation. That said, it may have been 3 4 weeks ago that they have been invited. They show up the first workshop. If it's a series of several workshops, make sure to reinstate, like, make sure that everyone knows each other, make sure that everyone knows why they're here, what's the purpose of these sessions, what is it that you're trying to achieve in the grand scheme of things, not just like how many process maps you want to create, but what is the wider business challenge you're here to tackle. I find it's worth all the time to reset the scene for everyone to be on the same pace. A lot may have happened in between the initial meeting invitation they received and the day of the workshop. This is also a good time when at the beginning to instate some ground rules. So it may be, all right, nobody is allowed to use their laptop. There's only one laptop switched on. Having the phones on silence. That everyone is equal during the workshop. There's no hierarchy. There's no seniority. Everyone is a participant of the workshop in the same. And they have been invited, so they are participants. Everyone, no, one person at a time talks. We respect the opinion of other people. What gets said in the meeting room, virtual or physical meeting room, stays in the meeting room. You may face some very challenging conversations, some very highly confidential conversations that may really impact the work of some people, even the existence of the roles of some people if you're doing some massive changes. So you need to build this confidentiality and confidence between the participants. Also, a good tip is to have a parking lot. So typically a Flipboard or maybe a Microsoft Loop notepad or something like that, where you can park every conversation that just lasts forever and where you're definitely not going to find an answer. So having a way to formally park things for later is quite good. When mapping the process, we've run last week with Craig. We ran a mini process workshop, so you can watch this video to have a look at the 5 steps to the perfect process. But use the tool, use Spark. The excuse that Spark is asking the questions for you when you're placing an empty box. It asks you what happens, who does it, and when you have an input output, so it guides you. It's sort of like I call it a bit like a train track that prevents you from going off piste too much. When someone goes on a tangent telling their favorite anecdotes about a process failure, you can always bring them back to say, all right, so where is it in the process that you'd like to make a change? What is it that didn't work, at which stage of the process this thing failed and caused this massive issue that we are now laughing about, but it was not funny at all when it was we were in the middle of it. So use the tool as an advantage to center back the conversation to what needs to be delivered. Spark has a lot of keyboard shortcuts that really helps you mapping at the speed of conversation, which is very much a driving principle of what we when we built Spark originally. So sort of keyboard shortcuts, they are at the bottom of my screen. Here in the footer, you can see there's and they are the list is changing dynamically to adapt to the context. So W and click will create an activity box, a what box. Y and click will create a Y box. So all these little tips are there, or using the T key to align boxes just like that is very, very powerful. It makes the tool completely invisible in the workshop, so you can really use the tool to your advantage. What I like doing when I'm walking through a workshop is after a break. Can be done before, but usually it's a good time to do it after a break, is to walk through the process again from start to the end to make sure that it all flows nicely and nothing has been forgotten. Don't forget that in a workshop, you will very often have different characters as the participants. You can identify the person that thinks like very, very high level, that really couldn't care less about the details. And on the other hand, sitting next to him or her, you'll have the person that just only understands the details and has been burnt by thinking too high level and now wants to know all the details. So you as a facilitator, it would be a fine line to walk to make sure that the two visions, let's say, are compatible. Sometimes it's good to be high level, sometimes it's good to be detailed, and both must have their say in the workshop. You will have someone who's quite shy, so don't dare, maybe is a bit shy in stepping in and saying what they want to say. This is your role as a facilitator to make sure that everyone has a voice. So doing like a virtual round table is a good opportunity, and identifying early this type of people, making sure that you're giving them the microphone so that they can express, because they will not step in and they will not jump in the conversation. And on the flip side, you can have someone as well that talks all the time. Well, that's your skill as a facilitator to make sure that everyone has enough room to speak, not more than necessary, but also not less than necessary. At the end of the workshop, very important, you will always have a parking block and next steps and actions. Very important, like any meeting, really not specifically to process workshops in this case, but that everyone has access to the next steps, who owns them, re-clarifying exactly what we are looking for, because sometimes an activity or a task that you've captured on the Monday morning is not relevant anymore on the Thursday afternoon. Keeping a list of who attended the workshop may be quite good, especially if you're an outside facilitator, to remember who they were and keep track of that. That's a good practice. And yeah, sharing the process with everyone. I usually try to finish a workshop by having at least a catch-up meeting a couple of weeks later with the same participants to just keep track of all the progress and keeping the team close to each other. Remember that the participants of a workshop may be the key people in your transformation project over time, because they will be the best advocate when it comes to implementing the process in real life. Sometimes there's a very long sort of lead time between defining a process and the actual implementation, especially if it involves a lot of HR type change, like role definition, job description, maybe recruiting new positions, recruiting the entire team. I've seen that as well, or literally moving people from one role to another. So it can take some time to implement a process. So keeping this team close together is very, very important. A little question at the top: are you using videos, sharing your face? I always find that, at least at the beginning, sharing everyone sharing their face with the video camera is good, then it can be switched off, especially for bandwidth reasons. And even more so when people don't know each other, it's good to create a better rapport. Record or not record is really up to you. I usually wouldn't, because usually you have so many conversations that are maybe a bit boring to watch, but some people like keep track and keep evidence of things happening. So really up to you. I don't have any opinion regarding recording or not. Now a little bit more about following up. So share links to the process. So in Spark, it's pretty much about copying the URL here and sending it over. If people have an account, that's all works fine. So share links to the processes so they can have a look at it. As a facilitator, have a good relationship with the owner of the workshop if it's not yourself, and getting feedback from people, because the ideas mature over time. Things take time to digest sometimes. So actively looking for feedback is also very, very valuable and worth it, especially when you're getting closer and closer to the actual implementation of the process. So as a summary, process workshops we believe are essential in any transformation program to reach a consensus, a shared understanding of your future version of the future of what you want to implement in your organization. Good preparation is always worth it. Run the workshop in a very methodical way. Introduce the workshop, map the process, walk through it, close the workshop. If you repeat that over and over again, you can't go wrong. If you use the 5 steps as well to the perfect process, you really can't go wrong. It can be very enjoyable, even though sometimes it's a bit stressful because of the challenge that are at stake. But we believe that following a clear methodology, a clear approach, everyone should have a say, and you're set for a good, solid project that will test the time, I guess.